Welcome to Kora Voices, a podcast series by Kathanvi, where we have honest, unhurried conversations with people who are building something meaningful. I am Karna Seth, founder at Kathanvi and host for this session. With me today for the first episode, we have someone with a very interesting background, a fashion designer who became a UX researcher and then a founder, building something around a very basic problem that exists in almost every Indian household. Miss Indrani Chaudhary, founder at Anu. Welcome, ma'am, to Cora Voices.
Thank Thank you so much, Karuna. It's very kind of you to kind of invite me to your podcast. And I've already met you guys once and been very warm people. And you guys are also very young, but building something very meaningful as well. We all love Banarasi saris, and especially you coming from the place which is very close to our heart. So, yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, ma'am. It's pleasure is all ours. And ma'am, before I start with this podcast, I'm sure everyone is very curious with the name Anu. So can we when we met during our first call, I you were very quick on answering some of our questions related to the origin of Anyo. So I want to start with that story, with that COVID story that you told us, because it has not left my mind since then. How saris have helped ladies in helping their households since COVID. So can we start with that story?
Sure, sure. So basically, see, I am a Bengali and I come from a household where I have seen saris being a integral part of women's lives. And that too, I grew up in a joint family where I would see my mom, my masis, my aunts, chachis, all like sitting together in the drawing room and kind of discussing and exchanging saris and buying saris from different vendors. So I remember there was a Gujarati auntie who would come every month to our place to kind of sell saris. And our mothers and our aunts would buy them in installments. And I, being a little girl, would just sit beside them and choose those saris for them. But they would also discuss among themselves as to oh, I have so many saris on me, I don't know even where to keep it. I don't need any more. I have 5 saris already lying, which is new. But still, they would be stuck on that one particular design that they kind of saw. So I have literally seen like people in my house, in my neighborhood, with wardrobes full of saris, and they did not know what to do with them. But they were housewives; they were dependent on their husbands or whoever for buying those saris for them. That's why they would even buy them in installments. But that would not prevent them from buying a new one. So those ideas or those cultural integrity kind of stayed into the system at a subconscious level. So what happened is in 2021, I got an opportunity while working as a UX researcher. I got an opportunity to work for a company which essentially deals with second-hand saris for upcycling products. And the founder is basically from Milan, who works in Mumbai closely with women. So there I had pitched this idea as he was looking for different new ways of procurement when it comes to sourcing sarees. Because what they do is they kind of pick sarees from the landfills, which are discarded in absolute discarded format, like completely in the landfill, and they go through a very rigorous cleaning process. So there I had pitched this idea that why don't Indian women sarees are like an emotional asset for them, and they keep their sarees very close to their heart, and it's literally they keep them as their own babies. They hardly use them, and if we can build a system where we can knock at every household of India to kind of, if they would like to keep those sarees, sell those sarees, in fact. So you would have better sourcing with regards to its quality, its variety. In fact, your upcycle products would also be of higher value. So he found that idea to be great, but also at the same time very overambitious. As to like how do we do this? How do we build this system? Uh, so then I decided that one day I would do it. So basically, Anu is a culmination of my education, experience of working both in the tech and in the fashion industry, and also my areas of interest in sustainability, for that matter. So
Okay, okay.
that's how I kind of started working on it, and then when I started researching on Anu, I learned that there's already a very unorganized network of or an unorganized market that exists with respect to second-hand sarees in India, where women, especially in the format of Facebook groups, various WhatsApp communities, Instagram communities, are buying and selling second-hand sarees among themselves. And this trend, especially, rose to the top during COVID, where a lot of women lost their jobs or their husbands lost their jobs, but they all came from very high-end family, from very good families, and they had expensive sarees on them. I spoke with few ladies from Delhi who had 40, 50,000 worth sarees lying in their
Okay.
wardrobe, but their
Okay.
husband just lost the job. But they also had bills to pay, also had their own lifestyle to maintain, so they started selling those sarees. They themselves
Okay.
did not even know that such system exists. So when they were also told by their friends that Asito, you can sell your sarees only, if you have bills to pay, and they were like taken by surprise. Ki aise bhi hota hai. This also exists. Like yes, there are different Facebook groups where you simply click pictures and you start selling your sarees, and you can make 40, 30, 40 rupees, 30, 40,000 of rupees per month. And they started doing that. So what these women do is they started clicking pictures and selling these sarees for 5, 6,000 rupees, 40, 50,000 worth sarees,
Okay.
and they could sell like hotcakes. And it will take them by surprise that I have 200, 300 sarees lying in my wardrobe. I can actually sell them, and pay my bills in terms of, especially during this unprecedented times when there are so many problems going on in the family. So then some of them literally started taking that up as a profession. So I know
Okay.
women, in fact, cells on our platform who literally have converted this crisis management that they did by selling their saris. By selling their saris, they started building a business around it. So some of them have literally become a full-time second-hand sari sellers, pre-loved sari sellers, and they have built a livelihood around it. So yeah.
Okay. So, ma'am, as you mentioned, you have grew up in Kolkata and sari, and I have also personally experienced this. Like in West Bengal and in UP Bihar also, sari is not that is reserved for occasions. It's the everyday part. हम लोग साड़ी डेली
Yeah.
देखते हैं and I have grown up seeing my grandmoms and aunts to wear it daily. So, but nowadays I see ki sari has become part of fashion runways like Milan, and it is specially curated bridal trousseaux in Delhi and Kolkata. So that makes me ponder upon what exactly is sari. Is there any particular definition to it? Is just a fabric, or is there something very meaningful to it that is inherent in it, and that everyone who loves it connects to it? So, what exactly is sari?
Yeah, yeah. Very, very interesting question, and it can have a very elaborate conversation on this. I think
Okay.
saris basically are a timeless emotional attire for Indians, and its presence kind of traces back to our Indus Valley civilization. You see, kind of back to prehistoric times, and we also have seen or have got its traces or like its mentions in our epics of Mahabharata and our Ramayana, right? So the thing is, sari is a very emotional attire for women, and it can be like it can have a parallel with jewelries for that matter. For Indian women, saris and jewelries are like closest to their heart. They are ready to give away everything that they have, but not saris and jewelries. So saris, literally, they consider, even my buyers, they think the saris are an asset. It's an investment. When in reality, it's basically a liability, because you are buying saris after saris, and so
Yeah.
much of money gets stuck in buying this. But from an emotional, from a psychological standpoint, they think that it's an investment, and I would love to make that. Okay, so basically, for me, it's a timeless attire, which is also a very, very versatile apparel for that matter. It's not a garment because it's not stitched to wear for that matter. And you see, it's gender agnostic. Both men and women are using saris,
Agreed.
dripping in
Agreed.
20 different times. Men are
Yeah.
taking their mom's saris, making dhotis out of it, dripping dhotis, and they're becoming extremely popular on
Yeah.
social media by doing that. Mom
Hmm.
and son
Yeah.
doing like duo videos together, and
Hmm.
then they are also
Yeah.
cutting those saris and making shirts out of it, basically. So it's very interesting
Yes.
to see.
Yes.
I see a lot of working women literally draping saris in the most versatile manner possible and going to work. So workwear saris, especially lightweight saris, are literally trending a lot among millennials and Gen Zs. So, like,
Yes.
unlike our mom's era or grandmom's era, where sari wearing was like a compulsion. So they definitely
Hmm.
think that it's a cultural attire, it's something to cherish and preserve and etc. But they also
Hmm.
did not have any option. It was a compulsion. They would literally sleep in saris, not in nightgown or things
Yes.
like that. It wasn't even
Yes.
allowed.
Exactly.
But for us,
Yes.
there's no compulsion. We may or may not wear sarees. But exactly when
Hmm.
there's no compulsion, people are adopting it to a great level. Is why
Hmm.
sarees today is a 90,000 crore market. Just imagine how crazy the market is growing at a CAGR rate of 6.5%. So
Hmm.
there's no going back. And since saris is the highest selling product in women wear category in India, even when we
Hmm.
wear it less, people think that who wears saris? It's a very least owned item, but people
Hmm.
are buying it like crazy. People are also not kind of stopping themselves from buying saris. So I think it is something to stay forever. It's not going anywhere else, and especially I'm proud of my our NRIs who celebrate saris or Indian culture much more than the Indians do living in this country. So I have NRI buyers who buy saris in dozens because they have their own community, they have their own network and things like that, and they
Hmm.
also can't repeat saris. They're like, I'm
Hmm.
open for it. In Western countries, thrifting or second hand is celebrated to a great extent. In fact, it's
Yes.
looked at something which is responsible, which is like I'm doing
Hmm.
something responsible to the society and to the environment. And
Hmm.
clubbing that up with a cultural attire is something that they think that they are literally doing some. It's like a social cause for them. They are contributing back to the society while also
Hmm.
kind of upholding their own cultural roots. So yeah.
Yeah. Ma'am, I also think sari is becoming a bit misunderstood fabric and a misunderstood attire, especially the entry of global fashion runways like Milan and West Media. I think sari is becoming a bit misunderstood. Like you mentioned, there was a compulsion in our time, in our not our time, my mom, my grandmother's time. So I think the way fashion designers are taking up sari and showcasing it on their runways, it's becoming a bit problematic and giving a very negative image to saris. Do you agree with this, or do you have it's like any other opinion on this statement?
Um, I won't agree. Basically, it's the thing is designers who are Western designers, they might try to interpret it, especially our draping, and call it their own. Like how we drape
Hmm.
our palla, how we drape our dupattas, even with salwar kameez for that matter, is how they are trying to own something that belongs to us. It's just like that, your Kolhapuri chappal, isn't it? But thing is,
Yes,
when it comes
exactly.
to
The very
Indian
hot
designers,
issue.
yeah, yeah. When it comes to
Yeah.
Indian designers, I think they are doing a big justice to saris. Especially if you see
Hmm.
Sabyasachi Mukherjee is the one who made khadi a premium fabric. Khadi was always looked down upon as a poor man's fabric. But he is the one who made khadi as a premium
Exactly.
fabric which could be owned in wedding. Yeah, be it Ritu Kumar with her Zardosi
Weddings.
work saris, be it any other, be it Raw Mango for that matter, or their Ikaya Banaras, right? So
Hmm.
Ikaya Banaras is also doing a great job when it comes to sarees. But what they are doing is they are not really letting the main weavers come on the mainstream, come on the surface level
Hmm.
on the show. So the ones who are actually weaving the fabric are not getting their dues even now. So they might be
Hmm.
selling a sari for 5 lakh, 10 lakh rupees because they're calling it their own design. They are having a copyright on this design. But who knows who's designing it? It could just be a weaver sitting in one gully of Banaras and then kind of weaving the saris and are only getting paid 1,000 rupees or 500 rupees per team, right? So that economic gap is still exists even when it comes to saris. Although there are many brands who are claiming that we are, giving livelihood to artisans, we work with artisans all across India, which I also have done. When I had a sustainable fashion brand, I would visit different cluster, handloom clusters in West Bengal, and would give designs to my the weavers to kind of get the designs done, especially with respect to Jamdani. But I don't think they are getting their dues as much as they deserve. So that way, I think pay parity has to improve for the weavers, the ones who are actually weaving the fabrics, because a lot of them, their younger generations are also leaving the field, thinking that there would be better opportunity in other areas, in other works of domain, where they can make more money than just being living as a weaver, because ultimately the respect or the name is being taken away by designers. I think that gap has to be.
Okay. And I also agree with this because as being in sari fashion brand, I'm seeing a lot of brain drain kind of activity happening in these clusters where family generations are involved in weaving, but now younger generations are not willing to take up the same job as their fathers and forefathers because simple reason, it's not paying good. It's not paying enough to sustain a good living. And I think
Exactly.
you are coming with the same experience, I guess.
Yes, yes, that's what I'm saying. Because nobody is stupid anymore, right? Earlier, they were literally whitewashed, or they were gaslighted that hey,
Yeah.
we'll give you work and things like that. But their younger generations, as they are studying, they also understand that we are not getting paid the same money that we deserve. We're selling a sari for 5 lakh rupees, but how much are you giving to us? Not even 5,000. Let's say for the same sari. That the kind of margin that designers keep because of the name and the brand that they have built around it. Right? So I think new sarees would always be there, especially in handloom sarees, and also power loom. Yeah, this is a very important point. I was just going to use. Power loom is taking a huge toll on handloom sarees, which should not happen. Especially you see in the cities of Surat, Rajkot, and things like that, people can't make a difference between patan patola, which is woven, versus which is printed. And because of e-commerce,
Yeah.
and because of lack of proper knowledge among the sellers who are selling it, they themselves cannot make the difference which sari they are selling, whether it's a power loom or a handloom. That's why even for second hand, our
Yes.
buyers sometimes have a trust issue. That the fact that you are selling a 50,000 worth sari for 6,000, how do I know it's an authentic handloom sari? Could be power loom also, and since you don't take return, so
Yes.
that's why an education or awareness being built around understanding handlooms or weave is very important. So that has to happen. Power loom is taking a big toll on handloom, is why also people are leaving the field. So handloom needs to be always have an upper hand over power loom. Yes.
Since entering in this sector, in particularly sari, and coming from Varanasi, I have talked to a lot of people, and I have talked to a lot of Gen Zs who are interested in sari. And I think, like, this is a question: is sari becoming more of an idea than a lived garment, like something people aspire to have than actually wear it daily in daily life? Like, is it becoming more of an idea and coming into a sari cult type of something?
Yeah, it's literally becoming a cult over the time. You properly mentioned, you correctly mentioned. It's basically an aspirational product, that India has 136 varieties of weave from 28 states and 8 territories that currently, Indian territories that currently we have. But how many of them, how many, like, and India houses 67 crores of women. How many women can claim that I have at least 50% of the weave that India produces? We don't even know 70% of the names. We only know few of them, right? And all the brands are also selling a few of them. How Definitely a cult that's being built, and I actually respect and appreciate this cult that's been built, and thanks to social media for it, and also different brands who are aggressively trying to sell sarees because they are
Mm.
doing actually a justice to an extent. But now the thing is, sarees have always been an aspirational item, and Gen Zs
Mm.
are the most aware and empathetic generation that India has
Yeah.
ever produced because
Yeah.
Gen Zs are questioning everything that they do and others that are doing around themselves. They are questioning where the saris are being woven, who actually are weaving the saris, what is the implication or the impact that their purchase decision would make on the person
Mm.
who's woven the sari and all other the every touch point in the value chain. So they are questioning
Mm.
every aspect, starting from wearing a garment to eating the food to their living to the way they are living. So the thing is, like I said, our generations had a compulsion to wear sari, but Gen Zs don't have any compulsion. But they are willingly do it because they think it's cool to go back to the roots and kind of celebrate it. They're understanding that nuanced value of what it takes to be an Indian, because you see,
Mm.
starting from Ayurveda to practicing yoga to kind of the food that we are eating. So they're understanding that what our forefathers had taught was the best thing to be practiced, given the time that we are in and how pollution is increasing, right?
Mm.
So saris, for
Mm.
that matter, I know a lot of Gen Zs who literally want to own each weave from every state, and they think that it's a like I said, it's an asset or it's an investment for
Mm.
them, even if they are not wearing it every day. But I just want to own it, kind of a thing. So I think definitely it's becoming a trend, and it's a good trend. I think it should rather become a style in the
Mm.
coming time rather than just
Mm.
remaining as a fad or a trend. And sari
Mm.
especially is never going to leave, no matter what. Like whoever is
Yeah.
in this business, they can have
Mm.
that thing that yes, we are going to be here no matter how much AI is
Mm.
coming, whatever is coming.
Mm.
But I also like how smart technology is paving the way for saris. There are a lot of saris which are being woven from regenerative fibers like bamboo fibers, pineapple fibers, banana fibers,
Mm.
and big brands are also advocating for it. So, and Gen Zs
Mm.
are more inclined towards those sustainable fibers and fabrics
Mm.
that are leading the
I
way.
think being in this business,
Yeah,
in the sari business, especially us as founders, because we are in the first line when, like, seeing it from a news perspective, you are dealing with second-hand sarees. Kathanvi deals in the first sarees, the first products that are made and delivered to our beloved customers. I think we have a very important responsibility in making that story live for long,
yeah,
because Kathanvi is from Varanasi, and Kathanvi in its name stands for stories. So I think we are trying our best that the stories of Varanasi and the stories of viewers of Varanasi, Tanchoi, and every kind of designs, they live in the fabric. And
yeah.
I think Anu and your initiative will be a very good gesture to make that happen for a very, very long time. So I just want to understand, has building Anu uh, changed you personally? Like, are there any things that Anu has brought to you? This will be the last question for this session, and I just wanted to be, a very good insight for the audience. So, has it changed you personally? Because Kathanvi has changed me very well. So, what's your take on this?
Very, very emotional question, amazing question. It just helps me. I'm kind of reflecting back to where do I start from. Definitely, it has changed me personally, and it hasn't changed, but the change is constant, right? Like how you evolve as a person, like how we have always perceived our mothers or the head of the family, grandmoms. She's the one who's taking care of everybody, and whatever is left at the end of the day, she is kind of keeping it for herself. Being a
Mm.
founder is also like that. So, like, saris are essentially built around community, where you deal with a
Mm.
lot of people, their own problems, issues, their own
Yeah.
expectations out from us. And
Mm.
as a founder, there are 20 stakeholders that we deal with, and each one of them has a different expectation from us. And it's like giving out, giving out, giving out. So you become very giving and very responsible as a person. So I think I've become very extroverted. I've started talking to a lot of people. I have become more patient and empathetic over the time, and also
Yeah.
have trying to learn life from different angles of people,
Yeah.
not just the
Exactly.
sellers and the
Exactly.
buyers that I deal with, but
Hmm.
also with everybody that
Hmm.
even inside our own team, the team members
Hmm.
also we need to deal with, right? And their own
Hmm.
expectations from a company or from a founder. So I think we
Hmm.
are on a pedestal on a daily basis, which
Yeah.
makes us more agile and makes us more conscious and aware that we need to be better and more responsible as a human being, and while contributing to each person who looks up to us in building this company. Yeah.
Very, very, very important insights, ma'am, because I could agree with you on a lot of points over there. Because Kathanvi has shaped me in a very different personality. I used to be very introvert. Now, talking with people and understanding the ground reality of this industry has made me realize a lot of things. And I'm hoping to serve my audience and my customers and beloved friends and families in a better way because of this. So yeah, so it was great talking to you, ma'am, and just
It was
our
great talking
last.
to you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Last note before we leave: where can anyone find Aneo? Where would you like to uh, direct our audience to Aneo?
Yeah. So basically, we are a online platform. So anybody can just look for it's a type www.unnew.com. So Unnew is basically a online platform or a website currently, and they simply can buy or sell whatever they want to do, and it's very very easily accessible and user friendly. Yeah.
Okay. Any last notes for Kathanvi from your end?
So Kathanvi, I wish them, or I mean, wish you guys all the best because you're dealing with a sari that is dear to Bengalis, particular. Yeah, and and Banarasi saris, we all know that there are around, I think, yeah, for especially with this thing, Banarasi saris, I think 5 lakh weavers are involved into weaving, and it is
Yeah.
one of the most celebrated and most prehistoric weave that India has ever produced. So I am sure you're going to take your company to the next level, and I'm looking forward to collaborate with you basically and see where we both can take each other. Yes.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining.